There's a few people that we've interviewed that, supposedly doing everything right. They're yogis that eat right.
Yeah, they're doing everything.
But then they're like, oh, I wasn't aware of this emotional component, the stress or the non-self-love.
Stress is a trigger. So if you have something residing in you, like say you have Epstein-Barr virus, or say you have one of the shingles viruses that are really nasty, the ones that I outline in my book that don't even make a rash on the body. They're just may make you sick. They give you neurological symptoms. Say you have something like that. Stress can trigger it. Mold can trigger it. Being stabbed in the back can trigger it. Someone breaking your trust can trigger it. Problems at work can trigger it. Being fired from your job, everything can trigger it. Absolutely. But there has to be something in there to trigger. And the goal is to get people better so they can live life and have those things happen to them. So they can walk into a moldy barn and not get sick. So they can actually, have a relationship issue and not let it take them out and make them sick. Everybody should have that right and that freedom to go through planet Earth, go through life, running into problems that we run into every day and not let it take you out and be a trigger. We all need that right. And that's the key. The key is knowing what the real cause is so you can live life like a normal person and have things go wrong and not go down because of it. And then just think about it. Say you're someone with that kind of trigger where, you're under stress, you lose a loved one or someone, or you separate in a divorce. And then you get told your body's attacking itself too because you got Hashimoto's or you got RA. And you're now told your body's destroying itself. And you can't function, and you've been let down, and you've had hard times, and it all turns into a big mess. Happens all the time. I see it out there. When you talk about medical research and medical science, you say, well, what about medical research? What about medical science? Well, maybe you should ask that question to a woman who's 30 years old who can't get out of bed and feed her kids and take care of her kids. And she's been to every fancy clinic you could name, from the West Coast to the East Coast, maybe even overseas, been to every doctor, and no one still knows why she can't get out of bed and function, feed her kids, get to work. So we have a serious problem out there with chronic illness, and there's a lot of people suffering, and we got to take it to a different direction. It's about the people. It's about what's really going on, what they need, what's really causing it.
So when you give guidance in your book, or when people consult with you on how to essentially get rid of the virus or the cause that's causing it.
I give advice to improve their health so they can actually get answers. So they know that their body's not attacking itself, because it's one of the greatest mistakes, like I mentioned before.
We'll just take Hashimoto's, for example.
Yeah.
So the goal would be to get rid of the virus, so that the mold
the
and all
goal
these
is to get rid of the virus,
yeah.
because you keep Hashimoto's in your life your whole life. You have a thyroid problem your whole life, and it gets worse as life goes on if it's not being addressed or taken care of.
But if it's running rampant, won't we just catch the virus again?
No, because there's different strains, number one. That's one thing to really understand. The other thing is, of course we can catch something again. But the whole thing is you needed to at least address what you've already had or what you're dealing with then. I mean, the future, who knows what the future brings? 20 years from now, you catch something else, whatever. But you have to get better. You have to recover. You have to move forward. That's just the bottom line. The other thing I want to mention is mystery illness. Another great mistake I had to tell you here. This is important. We see mystery illness. Medical research, medical science sees mystery illness as 6 kids in Idaho that fell down with a fever mysteriously, or 9 kids in Oklahoma that weren't feeling good, but no one can tell why, okay? The world separates this. But fibromyalgia is a mystery illness. Multiple sclerosis is a mystery illness. Okay? Lyme disease is still a mystery illness. All these are mystery. Lupus is a mystery illness, and it keeps on going. ALS is a mystery illness. They're all mysteries. We have to be honest. We have to be open. We have to get out of denial. It's the only way we're going to heal and protect our children and get our children better in the future, is if we're open and we realize it's all mystery and chronic illness. So let's move forward. Let's get some funding. Let's do what we have to do. Let's get virologists on the scene. Let's get the best people we got, and let's make it happen. And that has to happen someday.
ALS is so devastating to me, but have you helped anyone with ALS heal? Is it healable once we get the...
First of all, there's no way to diagnose ALS. There's only one way, and it's just seeing somebody decline in their health. And then when they fall apart neurologically and can't feed themselves or can't function, then the diagnosis of ALS happens. There's no real way to measure it in medical research and medical science right now. Every doctor has a different diagnosis for someone with something neurological. If you go to a Lyme doctor, it's not ALS, it's Lyme. If you go to an MS doctor, it's not ALS, it's MS, because there's no way to measure ALS besides the rapid deterioration that can occur, or the deterioration over time that someone goes through, like the breakdown of the body. So it's about the stages of how far the body breaks down. You can take somebody with multiple sclerosis, it's really bad, in a wheelchair and take them to another doctor and get diagnosed with ALS and go back, and it goes back and forth all over the place. It's because there's no way to measure it. There's no real way of understanding like what's causing this besides you can't use your arm anymore. You can't use your leg anymore. You can't think anymore. You know, you can't, all that just starts to play into effect. And then they realize, okay, something neurologically is going on. So they try to measure symptoms of you know, different levels of neurological symptoms they try to measure. And then someone says, well, I think it's ALS. Our doctor says, well, I think it's the worst case of neurological Lyme. Oh, I think it's, you know, the worst case of fibromyalgia. But that's what I mean. We're in this strange place in time in chronic illness. But what is ALS? It's encephalitis of the brain. It's a viral infection to the brain, and it usually encompasses a lot of heavy metals involved. So high copper, lots of mercury, and a pathogen, a viral pathogen. That's what ALS is. And it comes in different shapes and sizes for every different person. And that's how it works. So, and down the road, they'll measure that a little bit. They'll be able to. I mean, maybe I won't be here down the road when they really kind of sort that out. But I'm hoping I will be.
And is multiple sclerosis same kind of thing?
Multiple sclerosis is Epstein-Barr. Epstein-Barr causes the lesions of multiple sclerosis. It's one of the varieties. I talk about it in my book. It's one of the groups, one of the subgroups that actually causes that. And that's not necessarily the symptom of the person. You know, when I walk into a mall, okay, and there's 500 people in the mall, which is rare because the readings are going to come through every minute, so I have to be really strong and realize there's a really good reason to go in there. But when I walk in there, out of 500 people there, 150 of them will have things in their brain. They'll have different types of lesions, calcifications, crystallizations, little tiny cysts, small tumors, brown spots, black spots, white spots. And we have a lot of stuff in our brains, and it doesn't mean it's the symptom exactly either. Neurological symptoms happen because of other things in the body. But I can say thousands and thousands of people contact us with illnesses, and we're seeing, you know, everybody, women in their 20s more than ever before in history. And that's why the manifesting thing is a dangerous place, because, you know, when girls are laying in bed at 21 and they don't know why they can't function and they think they caused it, oh man. And then if they don't have a supportive family, that's when it's even more disastrous, when the support's not really there. When it's like, wait a minute, your vital signs check out fine. You know, is it all in your head? You know, and then that starts happening. So a lot of people are struggling, you know, without the support people need when they're younger. When people can't function and they're in their 20s and they can't work their jobs or start their lives, and then they're watching their friends, you know, they're on social media, do their lives. You know what I mean? Where they're working, they're doing their careers, they're exercising, and then, you know, when they're not feeling good and can't get the exercise they need, they're severely fatigued, they have to leave their job, and they're 24 years old or 25 years old, it's disastrous, especially if they're told it's their fault or they have autoimmune and that their body's attacking itself. It's a dangerous age to hear those things. I'm in my prime, I'm 23, I'm 24, or 28, it's that intense. So it's, you know, there's no assistance for any of this out there. If there's something if there's something that has to be heard or something that has to be found out there, it's that autoimmune isn't what it is, and the truth has to come out about it, because that's one thing that's really, really hurting people.
And so how, like, faith in your body, faith in your ability to heal, how big of a thing is faith and belief?
You know, when people know their tingles and numbness on their body, or their ringing in the ears, or their thyroid problem, is caused by a certain pathogen. The truth comes out, and they realize it's not their body destroying itself. You wouldn't believe the ability they can get for healing, like what can fire up for them to move forward. Because they're like, okay, you know what? It's not me I'm battling. It's something else. And then they just move forward and they start healing, especially if they're doing the right things. And even if they don't do the right things, they still start ticking upward. The no answers thing is really difficult for people. And there's people that have gone through 30 years of no answers. And then in the end, I mean, even the answers they get doesn't mean, hey, what can we really do about it?
So ADHD and autism, what is the real cause, and is autism reversible?
The truth about autism, it's from years past. It's actually from your mom and dad's mom and dad, and their mom and dad's mom and dad, and then their parents, and then their parents, and then their parents. And that's what's causing autism. It goes all the way back. That's not going to be discovered unless A, I talk about it because it's spirit's information, or write a book about it. But what's causing autism is heavy metals, but from the past. Here's how it works. Back in the 1800s, our forefathers used to drink mercury tonics all the time, especially when you went to the doctor's office. That was the treatment. That was the cure. It was a mercury tonic. And also other mercury exposure too. Like all the hats were drenched in straight mercury. The problem is the amount of mercury people had in them back a couple hundred years ago. What happens is that over each generation, it stays in the line. It gets passed on to another generation, but it gets passed on a homeopathic level. It's basically getting spliced. It's getting diluted, and it's at each time it's playing more of an effect. It's harming our children's lives from a long ago. Some mercury in people are 1,000 years old. So a child could have mercury in their brain and in their bodies. That's 1,000 years ago. It was mined out of mines 1,000 years ago, and it's in their system. But here's the problem. Our children today can't tolerate it like we did or before us. The tolerance is getting really low. And that's another problem. And that's due to other things, lots of little factors, like the foods we know about, right? You know about all the food problems that we're having out there, not just processed foods, but other food problems that we have. That's a part of it. Toxins, plastics, you name it. But it's that on top of the fact that we're homeopathically diluting that mercury from 1,000 years ago or from 300 years ago. And that's what's causing the rate of autism to rise. And it's not being addressed, like meaning the homeopathic side of it about the mercury just keeps on going, getting stronger and stronger. When it's diluted another 10 times, we're going to be in a bigger trouble, bigger problems, unless we're changing everything else around us or learning how to take the mercury out of us. That's one thing that Spirit knows about. So learning about that. Also, what other things to avoid in our life, what to move away from us so we could give our bodies a chance to heal. So that's how it works with autism. Plus, we have DDT in us that we never really did before. You know, since 1874, when DDT was in its development phase, but being used all the way up till 1939 when it just blew up and exploded. That DDT is in us, and we're passing that on to our children. So it's those kinds of things too. So it's the pesticides like DDT coupled with heavy metals like mercury, and then it's the homeopathic version of them. It's a homeopathic version of the DDT. It's a homeopathic version of the mercury, especially the mercury. And this is why we're falling apart. Now, I'm not trying to make things dreadful. It can be fixed. We can move forward. We can get past this, but we need some attention on it.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, is autism reversible by detoxification?
Look, I've seen people reverse anything. Okay, and I'm sure other healers, I'm sure other doctors, other practitioners, other physicians have seen people heal when they didn't think it could happen. You know, we always have to keep that in mind. Absolutely. We can always move forward. We can always heal. We can always reverse something. We have that ability. Yeah, we do. That's one thing you want to be positive about. That's one thing you want to be like, all right, I could make this happen, okay? That's what we got to keep going. And we have to have that faith
Do you know anything about cluster headache? They're so fascinating to me because not only are they nightmarish and pain, but they're like connected to the stars.
We call them cluster headache, but what are they? Mystery illness once again. We can add that right into mystery illness. We can throw it right in the package because it's a mystery and we don't know what's causing it. Basically what happens is where the planet is, as far as when you look at, okay, where the stars are and where the planet is and in that moment, or where the moon is in that moment, or the weather, all of that plays a role as far as affecting somebody with a cluster headache. Cluster headache is toxic heavy metals, but a different variety. It's an alloy of heavy metals. It's not just one heavy metal, it's a compilation of heavy metals. Your bicycle is an alloy, it's made out of alloy. So they mix a few metals to make your bicycle stronger and lighter, okay? So that's a design. When you have too many metals going on in the brain, and it's copper, it's aluminum, it's cadmium, it's nickel, and it's mercury, and a little bit of lead, we get the cluster headaches really easy because it's a mixture of metals. So it's someone's signature alloy that's occurring that needs the detox. So it's about heavy metal detox. Anybody with cluster headaches, it's all about heavy metal detox too. And especially if they have a sensitive nervous system, because that also plays a role too. There are a lot of different triggers to a cluster headache on top of that. So say someone has an alloy of different metals inside their brain or the nervous system. But they're also, like a woman is going through her menstruation, she's going through her cycle, that's a trigger because 80% of the body's reserve goes to the reproductive system when a woman has her cycle. So 20% is all you have left keeping everything running. So if you're someone with cluster headaches, it could trigger off easily then, or any kind of migraine or any kind of headache can trigger off just from that alone. Other things are hydration. People are chronically dehydrated. People live chronically dehydrated. That's another example of a trigger. Stress is another example of a trigger, and it goes on and on.
And while we're on the subject, is migraines covered in that? Because I know like so many people have migraines and take Maxol or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, migraines, I mean, and then there's also viral infections too, can play a role. Someone could have a higher viral load, that plays a role. Migraines and cluster headaches, it's an umbrella. But it's everything from food allergies, food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, what the Earth is doing, what the moon's doing, what the galaxy's doing, right? And then on top of that, if you're having a cycle, if you're not having a cycle, if you're dehydrated, all these things play a massive role of triggers, and it's about knocking each trigger out, doing what's best for you and knowing what's best, and you can get rid of your cluster headaches. Pull the heavy metals out of your brain, all of that, and you can get rid of these. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people heal from headaches and migraines.
Explain the importance of gut health.
You know, right now, it's a big topic. We're concerned about it. There's celiac, which is a mystery illness. That's a whole mystery illness because how come there's people that could eat all the wheat and gluten they want, but they don't have celiac? Well, how come some other person has it? Because everybody's different. It's about what's going on inside somebody's body or what's going on. So gut health, but when people have gut health problems, taking away gluten, taking away wheat is really important, taking away dairy products. Regardless if you think you're sensitive or allergic, you just remove them and you just take away the bad foods because it's triggering something in someone. Celiac is called an autoimmune disease. Once again, that's not correct. When it comes down to gut health, people that have bloating, digestive issues, inflammation in the gut caused by real things, inflammation in the intestinal tract, whether they have colitis, whether they have Crohn's, whatever it is that's going on in their intestinal tract and their gut, they need straight celery juice. That is one of the answers that Spirit has given me to help people. Now listen, it doesn't mean you have to stop doing your juice that has all kinds of greens in it. Doesn't mean you have to stop your dandelion greens, you know what I mean, the whole bit, like your whatever cilantro, whatever it is you're putting in your juice, or beets, cucumbers, apples, whatever's going on in your juice, okay? Just know that you should always do a separate one that's straight celery juice, 16 ounces of straight celery juice, and you can move your gut health past a place you never experienced before. I mean, right now, I know there's hundreds and hundreds of people, actually in the thousands, that are reclaiming their gut health just from Spirit's advice on the straight celery juice. 16 ounces of straight celery juice can change your life and your gut health more than anything you've ever tried. So you have to do it. Some people it's in literally 1 week. Some people it takes a few months, depending on how bad it's been. Depends on how many antibiotics they've had in their gut. Depends on what pathogens lying in the gut. Depends on, what's going on. Their peristaltic action, everything. But celery juice is the key. So that's another takeaway for people. So that's a big deal.
Can you talk about sugar, cancer, and the fruit?
The sugar thing is a big deal. Okay, real big deal. Because right now it's about no carbs, no sugar, no carbs, the whole bit. And really what's a victim in this whole thing is two things. Fruit itself is becoming a victim because of the no sugar fear. And then the person not ever eating any fruit is the other victim. See, longevity depends on fruit, meaning in the diet, you don't have to live off of fruit. You just have to have some in the diet. You can't go no fruit because there's things in fruit that keep us here a long time. Interview people in their 90s or in their early hundreds or in their late 80s, and they're gonna tell you stories about all the berries they ate when they were younger. They're gonna tell you about they ate grapefruit every morning for the last 25, 30 years. They're gonna tell you about these oranges they used to eat all the time and these clementines and everything else. It's a big part of keeping us safe to get us to the finish line. Fruit is anti-cancerous, there's no question. It has phytochemicals in it that help push away every disease. I'm not saying it's the cure-all, but you can take a ship, you can put a whole bunch of men on it, you could have barrels and barrels and barrels of food, including vegetables. By the time 6 months later or a year later that ship arrives somewhere, most likely everybody would be dead because there wasn't a lemon on the ship. The truth is, people don't even eat fruit. What, a clementine on the holidays? Strawberries and strawberry shortcake? Blueberries and blueberry muffin? How many people really eat that much fruit? It's not behind illness. It's not behind disease. Here's the mistake that occurred, okay? There is bad sugar out there. We know that. There's the processed cane sugar. There's the corn syrup. We know that, the corn sugar. We know about that. We also know about all the different, the way sugar's used. It's used in chocolate cake. It's used in desserts. It's used in all that. That sugar isn't good for us. You better believe it. It's not. It's been stripped down. It's not good. But fructose in fruit is not the enemy. This is a great mistake. Once again, another one that's going to hinder the future of our generations to come. It's going to hurt our children. Whether anybody likes it or not, I'm just going to bring the truth. You can eat other things. I'm not saying you have to just live off of fruit. We can't be afraid of it. You got to eat a couple of apples a day. You got to eat some blueberries every single day. You got to go a little bit further. You got to have, maybe a mango, have some bananas. Wild blueberries are the answer for saving generations to come, by the way. That's a fruit that's going to keep us here longer. Undiscovered science is in that fruit. I put it in my second book that's coming out, all about the wild blueberry and what's in it and how it's going to protect us, literally protect us, our brains, everything about our lives in all kinds of ways. And that's what we're going to be doing. It's going to be the wild blueberries for us, and that's what we need. In the future, you're going to see it. Mark my words. Maybe about 5 to 7 years from now, 10 years from now, all you're going to hear about is wild blueberries, not cultivated, wild. It's all you're going to hear and what it's doing for people. I already have wild blueberries changing people's lives right now with their health, with chronic illness. So if we fall into the fruit fear, we're going to not have our wild blueberries. Oh, maybe we'll just have a few blueberries. Maybe we'll have a couple of strawberries. We need more than that. We have to. It's important. It's critical.
One more time. Why fructose in fruit is different?
Absolutely.
Than processed.
Absolutely. Fructose in fruit. So that sugar is bonded to phytochemicals. It's bonded to antioxidants. How do we live here longer? It's antioxidants. You know how you die? You die by oxidizing. That's how we slowly die. We oxidize. Okay, some people oxidize faster, some people oxidize slower, but nevertheless, if we want to live here longer, if you're someone that likes the longevity thing, okay, well then you better be eating fruit because those phytochemicals, those antioxidants stop us from dying. So what are we going to do? Avoid it? It doesn't make any sense. It's just a mistake that occurred over the years because we were picking on sugar, but then a casualty was fruit. And then on top of that, through belief systems that were formed with no real data. And then on top of that, the other casualty is women and children. That's who's going to be hurting from the lack of fruit in the future. Fertility, the future generations giving healthy birth, all of that and healthy children relies on how much fruit we eat in the future. Maybe not today, but in the future.
Talk a little bit about medication. I know you mentioned antibiotics.
Yeah.
Why is it detrimental to our health with long-term use? And
Sure.
maybe some of the instances where it is okay.
Well, when it comes down to Lyme disease, antibiotics are not that great. It's not the way to go. There's Lyme doctors out there. There's great physicians out there, great Lyme doctors that don't even use them anymore because they realize after 20 years of using them in their practice, they didn't get far and people's conditions worsened. So now they're using things like cat's claw. They're using things like lemon balm. They're using things like golden seal. They're using different herbs, different vitamins, and they're seeing their Lyme patients improve. So, antibiotics are not the answer for chronic and mystery illness. We need them at times when we're in a crisis or we have a raging UTI, urinary tract infection, and things got out of hand in our body, and we could use them at different times. So they're really helpful for different people at different places and everything. But things like Lyme disease, they're not good for. And it's like that with all medications, though, really. We have to be proactive in all aspects of your health. If you're someone dealing with chronic UTIs, then something's going on, and we need to address it. Usually it's a streptococcal infection. Streptococcus is in the body, and it's running rampant in the body, and that's what UTIs are caused by. It's strep mostly. So you want to take care of yourself in different ways. You want to eat right. You want to, do the right things, take the right supplements. Find yourself a naturopath. Find yourself a functional medicine doctor that will give you, some things to help. You want to be proactive when you're dealing with things like that.
Does Spirit ever say anything about like fate or karma? Because some people don't recover, or they do all the right things and they, the young mother at 30 dies.
Well, people that have chronic and mystery illness, if they do the right things, if they know what they really need to do, they'll make it. They'll recover, bottom line. It's about information. It's about knowing the truth. It's about knowing really what to do. Listen, this is really important. Knowing the cause is half the battle. That's half the battle, knowing the cause. So we talked about before, it's not your body attacking itself. You didn't manifest your illness. Knowing the real cause of what's just giving you that pain and agony is the first half. Okay? Second half is knowing what to do about it. Where do we go with this? What do we do? How do we fix it? That's the other half. If you have those two pieces that, there, you're going to get better. You're just going to. Karma, no karma, whatever happened in a past life, whatever happened 10 lives ago, whatever someone's belief system is, you're going to get better. So that's how it works, with karma. But we got to be careful with karma too. Because right now, everybody's like, whoa, I'm not well. It's got to be my karma. I deserve this. I deserve to be sick. I deserve to not function. I deserve to have this brain fog. I deserve to lose my job. Whatever it is, that's kind of a slippery slope. We got to be careful. Good things happen. Say, hey, well, fantastic. But we have to be careful on the karma thing. Yeah,
do you want to just give us like a general overview of how to get rid of Epstein-Barr?
Absolutely. The key with Epstein-Barr is, and most of us have it, it's in our bodies. Eventually, all of us are going to have it. It's just getting to that point where, every single person is going to have it in them. The key to getting rid of it is knowing how to use certain things like certain herbs, certain foods. Most importantly is the foods, to know what starves it. That's the big deal. You see, right now, doctors worry about, and practitioners worry about candida. So they don't want to feed candida. So they take things out of people's diets so that they don't feed what candida is and everything, which we can talk about too in a little bit. But it's not about candida. That's not it. I mean, there are people feeling fantastic, riddled in candida, playing tennis, drinking margaritas every day, and they're loaded with candida. They got it coming out of their ears. They got it pouring out of their eyes. It's everywhere, but they feel great. That's what's happening. What I'm saying is, it's about starving other things like Epstein-Barr. So when you're dealing with Epstein-Barr and how to get rid of Epstein-Barr, it's taking certain foods out of your diet that feed it specifically. One is, I'm just going to tell everybody now, is eggs. I'm not saying that, I have a problem with eggs or I hate eggs. It's just that it feeds Epstein-Barr and it keeps it around for decades in someone's life. You want to get better with chronic illness, you have to eliminate that out of the diet for sure. So what I'm saying is, one part of getting rid of Epstein-Barr is removing foods, like eggs, all dairy products, that does feed it. Corn feeds it, specifically. That's a big deal. Canola oil feeds Epstein-Barr. And it feeds it really well, too. That's another big deal. If someone's eating too much chicken, it has to be reduced. That's something that we have to be cautious about. You could still have some chicken if you really wanted to, or whatever animal proteins, but you gotta keep definitely the big ones out, the dairy, the eggs. You gotta reduce the amount of chicken you're eating because it's related to the egg, even though they're kind of still different as far as how the body works with the Epstein-Barr, but you have to, minimize that. That's another thing. You have to get the wheat gluten out. You gotta get the gluten. See, what you'll find in natural medicine right now, everybody's like, well, hey, let's name this diet. Let's name a diet and call it the autoimmune diet or whatever it is. And you'll see they're taking out gluten. But they don't know why it's playing effect. They think the food is causing the inflammation. And that's what I was telling you before. There's so many people that eat wheat and they're not inflamed. All the way to your 60s or 70s, and they're not inflamed, okay? So wheat gluten and gluten in general doesn't cause inflammation. It feeds Epstein-Barr, which people have in them, and then Epstein-Barr causes the inflammation. So in natural medicine, we're still not there. We need to go a little bit farther. We need to know that the food is feeding the pathogen. So how do you get rid of Epstein-Barr? You back off the foods that feed it. That's number one. And then you know what to take to kill it. You got to go after it. One thing happening right now, there's a severe zinc deficiency. Kelly, you have it. You have that zinc deficiency.
Okay.
That's one of your big problems, all right? The zinc deficiencies are rampant right now. They're just, everybody's dealing with at least some aspect of a zinc deficiency. Yours happens to be greater. It's a little better than it was in the past, Spirit tells me. Spirit says that it was a lot worse years ago, and it's better now. Okay. But it's still kind of a trigger. You have no zinc in the body. If you have no zinc in the body, you can't fend off pathogens, whether it's bacteria, whether it's viral. So that's one aspect. So that's an example of what to do. Yes, you can get rid of Epstein-Barr, and there could be some left in you that's dormant, but you want a little bit left in you. You don't want it all gone. You want to feel better, live your life, feel great, feel healed, but you want a little bit left in case what you said earlier, you pick up another one. You pick up a strain, because the body will actually eliminate that strain because you have a little bit left of another one. So you want to have that going on.
Because of the antibodies.
Exactly. Anybody dealing with chronic illness, whatever it is, whether it's RA, whether it's a neurological Lyme or Lyme disease, whether it's multiple sclerosis, whether it's ALS, whether it's migraines, whether it's, fibromyalgia, I probably said that already, whether it's lupus, whatever it is, you have to know that you have to get the right kind of B12 in you. That's the other answer. So one thing I've been blessed with is Spirit telling me what's coming in our natural world to help people heal. What can we do to make a game changer happen? There's one type of B12 everybody has to be on if they're dealing with chronic illness, and it's adenosylcobalamin. That's the one. There's methylcobalamin. So when you go to your doctor's office or your practitioner's office, and he or she puts you on B12, you'll most likely have methylcobalamin. That's the one used, okay? That doesn't fix the neurological problems people have. Because of Spirit, I've been able to really get doctors to help their patients really heal, and practitioners, by telling them it's the adenosylcobalamin mixed with the methylcobalamin in one. And that's where it covers the nervous system and gets people out of all that. It starts moving people out of MS, starts moving them out of all these different illnesses. And it's that right there. If there's a takeaway here, it's make sure you get the right kind of B12. It could change your life. Make sure you're on the frozen wild blueberries. You want them frozen. Frozen wild blueberries. That recovers neurological problems. It pulls heavy metals out of the brain. You want that in your life. Make sure you're up on your zinc. Go to your practitioner and talk to them about how much zinc you need, or how to give you the right kind of zinc. And that's a thing all on its own there. You need that. You need to take away the foods that are in the diet that aren't good. Doesn't mean you have to take away everything. And then you move forward.
And as we've been doing this interview, have you heard Spirit telling you answers?
Of course. Of course, I'm listening. I have to listen.
Has
I have
anyone
no
ever
choice.
has anyone?
Spirit wants to talk about elevated biotics, and I've been holding it off, but now I got to talk about it.
Okay.
We're into probiotics right now as a culture and a society. We're into probiotics, right? And we're all into that. Microorganisms of the ones we need that are beneficial in our gut, okay? There's something called soil-borne microorganisms that we know about. they're not as strong as elevated microorganisms. These are on your leaf of kale when it's growing in your garden. You just got to get it in you once in a while. At the farmer's market, if you go and there's freshly picked kale or freshly picked onions or scallions, whatever it is, it's loaded with microorganisms. They're stronger than soil-borne microorganisms. They're strong, if I said that right, they're stronger than any probiotic that we have is this elevated biotic. I'll tell you why. The elevated biotic that's on top of spinach growing in your garden, on a tomato growing in your garden, or at a farmer's market that was just picked and not washed. I'm not talking about having dirt on your produce. You don't have to have dirt. You can rinse that off, because the dirt has the soil-borne microorganism, which is not as good as the elevated biotic one. What happens is when you pick a fresh tomato or an apple in an apple orchard, it's loaded with a film that has millions of this elevated biotic. That's the only one that goes to the ileum in the gut and restores people's lives. That's what has protected you all your years, because you had a berry that had a little bit on it, or you had something that had a little bit on it in your life, or someone did. And if someone didn't, then that's not good, because that means your gut can really become a mess. What I'm trying to say is, look out for this, have this in your life. It can change your life. It creates B12 in your ileum and restores your health, your gut health. So the elevated biotic, science doesn't know about it yet. We're not there yet. 10 more years from now, we're still gonna be playing with the soil-borne microorganisms. That's what we're gonna talk about. And then finally, we're gonna get to the elevated biotics. Could be 10, 15 years from now, maybe sooner because of me getting the information out there, but that's about gut health. That changes people's lives.
You talk about the homeopathy being passed down over generations and generations. Some people call it genetics in certain things, but it's actually...
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Okay.
One of the greatest mistakes of all time right now that's coming into play is genetics, is blaming our genes for our illness, especially when we get it mixed up with hereditary sensitivities. So if mercury has been a person's problem being passed down from generation to generation, causing some of the same symptoms as their forefather, we think it's a gene issue. It's not a gene issue. It's just a sensitivity that's hereditary. If you have a zinc deficiency and you have a child, that child has a zinc deficiency even more. That's not a gene problem. That's how it works. If you have a B12 problem, like a methylation issue, and then you have a child and that child has a B12 problem, it's not a gene, even though we're picking on genes now. There's something like the MTHFR gene mutation that's going on right now. What that is, it's a methylation issue, but it's not a real gene issue, and this is gonna unfold. There's lots of things we blame on genes. It's a great mistake, because once again, it's your bad genes. Where do you go from there? Can't fix them. You can't fix your genes. What, you can try to meditate your genes better? You can try, you can try, but if we think we have a faulty gene, we're gonna get lost in it. I mean, it takes a certain person to say, I'm gonna fix my genes and meditate on that, sure, but it's still in the back of your mind that you got bad genes. And there's a part of the human brain that is always gonna have that in there, floating around, circulating, harming us. It's not a gene issue. Chronic illness has real reasons, real problems that cause chronic disease. And we get sucked into a whole gene mistake, and that's dangerous. Hereditary is different, and that's a whole nother ballpark, You got the same, you got genes in the body, you got, say, the same hair color as your forefather, or whether your mom and dad or your grandfather. These are genes, but illness is different. Chronic illness is different. Yeah, you may be just as sensitive as your mom or your grandmother. That is a hereditary trait that goes down due to other things going on in the body. But the genes are still intact and they're okay. We can't fall for that one.
I mean, a big theme throughout a lot of the experts, they talk about epigenetics and how meditation can turn off illness-causing genes and turn on immuno-boosting genes.
I totally support that 1,000,000%. With meditation, with healthy living, with lower stress, with better food, we can actually, we can turn on the powers that genes have to help us heal. That's true. That does exist. And we can help turn off genes that have been activated by other problems. But we do have that ability if we work on it hard enough. But the human mind doesn't always work like that. We all can't be a yogi. We all can't be a guru sitting on a mountaintop, okay? We can try, but there's a part of us that if we think we have bad genes, it's gonna just hinder us at the same time, and we're gonna be in a battle. So we have to realize that we're doing that meditation to actually change our lives in a different way and build up our immune system and build up our health. And that's actually what really happens, by the way, too, though. When you do the meditations, you're taking care of yourself and you're doing great things like that and you're eating right, your immune system gets stronger. And that immune system gets stronger is also playing effect in your health. We know that. It's the same thing. And yes, there are genes involved with our health, but they're not mutated. They're not injured genes. They're not bad genes. That has to be removed. That has to be done with, because it's taking us down a dark place, a rabbit hole that we're not supposed to go into.
Is there, I mean, we've been told like maybe 2% of disease is caused by gene mutation.
Well, it takes something to make a gene mutation if something does happen, like a birth defect and stuff. You inherited mercury, a gift, going back 500 years ago. You inherited DDT from 3 generations ago. And yeah, that's causing problems without a doubt. But the gene thing, whoa. You know, the gene thing's really developing right now because, once again, we don't know about what Epstein-Barr does, like how it really affects someone. We don't know about what the shingles does. The shingles creates all the neuropathy people suffer from, like neuropathy in the legs, the sciatic nerve pain that gets inflamed, all from the shingles virus, not even from the Epstein-Barr. We don't know about these. We don't have them all in place. Endocarditis is caused by HHV6. They're not going to find that one out for a long time. Medical research, medical science isn't going to get there. So we may as well just do the gene theory, you know? And yes, we have genes. Yes, if we're in agony and stress and having hard times, we can weaken our immune system and our genes could potentially weaken. But by no means, weaken is different than having a mutated gene or a gene that's broken down and no use or anything like that. No matter what belief system you get sucked into or drawn into, no matter what's happening, what diet you believe in, whatever feels good that you're following, which could be fine, no matter what out of anything, just remember, today we still don't know what happens to food when it enters into the stomach. We don't know at all what happens. We got an idea, enzymes, some digestion happens, assimilation, the breakdown of food, but science isn't going to discover what truly happens when food enters the stomach for hundreds of years from now. That needs to be understood because it's a miracle. And science cannot measure miracles. It's not possible. It's a miracle of God, and that's what happens to food when it enters into the stomach. And that's one miracle we can't touch. So realize when you're eating food, we don't know really what happens, and we're not going to know for a really long time. So just understand, in all belief systems, you just got to be careful on where you go with it and what you're doing. Try different things. Experience different things. Don't be afraid of fruit. Talk to your doctor about the new B12 that's out. Do things. Don't be afraid to try things. Have compassion towards yourself. Be compassionate towards yourself with your healing process. Don't fall for mistakes occurring right now that your body's attacking itself. Don't fall for that you have faulty genes. Don't fall for these different things. Realize that there are ways to heal. You take this information, you empower yourself, you move forward, and you can heal. Just know that your body's actually working for you, though, and it's healing things and keeping you going without you realizing it. So if you've been suffering for 20 years or 10 years or even a year and you're lost in it, and you're looking for help, realize that your body's working with you side by side. It's not letting you down, even when you think it could be. It's not. It's right by your side. It's there. It's going to help you get there. So keep on moving forward. Keep on going. You didn't cause your illness. You didn't manifest it. You didn't attract it. Your body loves you. It loves you unconditionally, and it's not letting you down. Have patience. Have compassion. Take one day at a time. You're going to get there. Doesn't matter how long you've been sick. You can heal. And always remember that and never forget.